In this video, I'll be installing the receiver and gyroscope in my 70mm Freewing F-22 Raptor. Now for starters, I have the Freewing tail flame lighting kit, the 2-light version, installed in the tail. I have my custom landing light kit installed on all 3 landing gear. And I have my custom pilot head in my likeness, the non-moving version, installed in the cockpit. Now, the reason I have the non-moving version on this particular model is because this model is a little bit small for the moving head version. So in this one, just the model looks straight ahead and doesn't move. Straight ahead and doesn't move. Now, before we go any further, it would be awesome if you would go by and subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me out amazingly. It allows me to keep making awesome content like this for you without having to go out and sell a kidney. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get to work. I typically set up all of my fixed-wing aircraft the same way. That is to say that all the channels have the same functions, and that would be ailerons on channel 1, elevator on channel 2, throttle on channel 3, rudder on channel 4, flaps on channel 5, 6 are retractable landing gear, 7 are the brakes, 8 are the gyroscope functions, 9 are the landing lights, and if I have navigation lights, they are on channel 10. But since this particular model comes from the factory with both ailerons and flaps installed, setup is pretty straightforward and simple. That means we don't have to do a whole lot of manipulation to get this thing in the air. And as an extra bonus, the access cover to the electronics section is behind the canopy and just in front of the center of gravity. So you don't need a battery inside of it to keep it balanced and work on it. Let's get to it. We will need a receiver, a gyroscope, the associated cables that come with the gyroscope, a screwdriver that also comes with the gyroscope, scissors, 2-sided tape, and a transmitter for testing. I typically install the receiver first, do a functions check before I install the gyro to make sure that I can identify any problems. Now, this particular model has a junction box or a splitter box in it, and that helps a lot for these functions. We're going to set this aside while we make sense of the cable plugs that we have in here. Now we're going to start with our aileron, which is here, which is our channel 1. And we're going to plug that into here. I think we can run through these pretty quickly. And we're looking for our elevator, which is our channel 2 elevator, into channel 2. And then our throttle. Where are you, throttle? As soon as I say quickly, that's when I find something that I can't, and I run into something I can't find. Here's throttle, right? Because throttle is plugged into a splitter because the afterburner lights are installed. So our throttle goes in here into channel 3. And then channel 4 is our rudder there into channel 4, like so. Channel 5 is our flaps, right there. Channel 6 is our landing gear here, like so. Channel 7 is our brakes, reverse brake there, like so. Channel 8 is our gyro control, but that's not connected yet, so we're going to be just skipping over that. And then channel 9 is our landing lights. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in, making sure we skip a slot for our landing lights. And right now, we're not going to be securing the receiver because we still have to put a gyro in here. So we're just going to tuck this out of the way. We're going to get our battery, and we're going to plug up our battery and do a functions check. Now, I usually fly these with a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, but they can take, I guess, up to a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, but I don't own any of those. And the 4,000 gives me about, typically, I think on these 70mm planes, I get about 4.5 minutes or so worth of flight time, and that's plenty. So hooking this guy up, there is a power connector for the afterburner lights. So we're going to connect that into the battery first. And that goes into the battery's smart plug. So we're just going to connect that in there. We got a little flash on the lights. That's a good sign. And then we connect the battery in. Oh, before we do that, turn on the transmitter. Now, where was I? Connect the battery in. Okay, battery is in. And now let's put the cover on and do our function check. Let's start with our ailerons. Ailerons seem to be working and moving in the right direction. Onto our elevators. Okay, we're 2 for 2. Elevators are moving in the right direction. Let's try our rudders. Rudders are moving in the right direction. And our flaps, takeoff position with a delay. Landing position. Great. Okay. We are batting 1,000. All right. Now let's, I guess we can try to bring out our landing gear, but they aren't working because the safety's on. So now we can disengage our safety. Airplane is armed. We can check our throttle. Throttle is working. And while we're checking our throttle, we might as well go around back and make sure that tail flame lights are actually working. Yeah, that's working all right. Now we can bring out the landing gear. Landing gear worked perfectly. The last function to check is the reverse brake function on channel 7. Now the way it's set up straight out of the box is there's a switch that you typically assign in your controller to channel 7, and when you flip that switch, the motor then is in reverse. So if you operate the throttle at that particular point, the thrust goes out of the front of the plane as opposed to out of the tail section of the plane. Great. However, my experience has shown that when my plane is on the ground and it's barreling at high speed towards the edge of the runway, remembering to flip a switch and then adjust the throttle to try and bring the plane to a halt just isn't intuitive for me. So what I've decided to do instead was build a function of combined actions into one switch on my controller. So what I designed it for, the way I intended it, is that it would give full up elevator, switch the motor into reverse, and simultaneously run the throttle to 100%, all in one switch. And if that works properly, then when I hit the ground, all I need to do is flip that one switch and all that stuff happens and the plane safely comes to a halt. And the switch that I've decided to assign it to is the trainer switch because I don't use it for anything else. And it's a momentary switch, which means it only works as long as you're holding the switch. And when you let the switch go, it goes back off. Perfect for braking. So we're going to test it. We're going to arm the model. Landing lights come on to let me know that it's armed. And if everything is working properly, when I flip this switch, the elevators should go to full up. The motor should be in reverse and it should run at full speed in reverse. Here we go. And it works. On to the gyro installation. Now on a remote control airplane, much like in an actual full-scale airplane, the purpose of the gyroscope is to assist the pilot in keeping the airplane in a particular attitude of flight when the pilot is not inputting anything on the controls. This particular gyroscope that I choose to use, the NX4, has 2 different modes that it operates in. It has a level mode, which means if I take my hands off the controls, it will attempt to level the plane back out and fly straight. Or attitude hold mode, which means whatever position the airplane is in, when I take my hands off the controls, it'll attempt to hold the airplane in that position. And switching between modes is something that is actually on channel 8, the gyroscope function switch. The gyroscope itself only operates on the pitch, the yaw, and the roll axes, controlled by the ailerons elevators, and rudders. And in order to do that, we're going to physically install the gyroscope between the receiver and the servos, these wires here. And since it's only controlling 3 axes or 3 servos, then that means there's only 3 that we need to unplug. We're going to start with our aileron channel or our roll channel. And we're going to pull our first jumper cable, and we're going to connect it into the aileron input jack on the gyroscope like that. And then we're going to find our aileron channel, which is channel 1 on our receiver. We're going to unplug that from the receiver. Let's get it out of there. There we go. Aileron has been unplugged from the receiver. And then we plug it into the output for aileron on the gyroscope. So we're going to just kind of find our aileron out on the gyroscope, and we plug that into there. Then we take our jumper cable, the aileron in on the gyroscope, and we plug that into the aileron jack on channel 1 on the receiver. Next, we're going to unplug our elevator channel, channel 2, from our receiver, and then we are going to plug it into our elevator out on our gyroscope, like so. And then we're going to grab our second jumper cable, and we're going to plug that into elevator in on the gyroscope. And we're going to plug that other end of that into our elevator jack on channel 2 on our receiver, like so. And then lastly, we're going to unplug our rudder wire from the receiver, which is on channel 4, and we're going to plug it into rudder out on our gyroscope, like so. And then we're going to grab our third jumper cable, plug it into rudder in on our gyroscope, plug the other end into the rudder channel, channel 4, on our receiver. And the last thing to do is to grab our fourth jumper cable, and we're going to plug that into channel 8 on the receiver, which is our gyro function channel, like so. And then the other end plugs into the auxiliary end jack on the gyroscope, like so. The next thing we're going to do before we actually check the gyroscope settings themselves is that we're going to do a channel 8 function check. And we notice that we have an indicator light on our gyroscope, and our gyroscope function on channel 8 is assigned to this switch on the controller, and that switch toggles between attitude hold mode and level mode. So when I switch this, the gyroscope should change and flash to let me know which mode it's in. And that means our channel 8 auxiliary is working. We can now move on to actually checking the function of the gyro itself. The way that the gyroscope is able to assist in leveling out or stabilizing the plane is that once it's solidly affixed to the plane, if the plane pitches, rolls, or yaws, the gyroscope perceives that difference in motion, and it's supposed to adjust the control surfaces to try and counteract it. But if you notice right now, as I'm moving the gyroscope around, the control surfaces aren't moving. That means the gyroscope sensitivity needs to be adjusted. And right now, the sensitivity is set to neutral. You can see these little pots here for aileron, elevator, and rudder. My pitch, roll, and yaw axes, they're set to neutral. The slot is vertical. So they can be adjusted to positive or negative rates depending on which way the gyroscope is mounted in the airplane. And right now, I'm not sure which way to turn them. So the way that I adjust it is I'll typically turn them all in one direction, all in the same direction, 100% in that direction. And then I'll move the gyroscope to see which way the control surfaces move in an attempt to counteract my motion. So let's give that a shot. So I intend to mount the gyroscope in the airplane facing with the cords facing towards the front of the plane and the body of the gyroscope facing towards the rear of the plane in this position that I'm holding it in. So when I roll the gyro to the right aileron should go down and the left aileron should go up. And when it rolls back to the left, the right aileron should go up and the left aileron should go down to counteract it. And what's actually happening is the opposite. So if I roll right, you see the aileron goes up when I roll right, and you see when I roll left, the right aileron goes down. And if I left the setting like that, what would happen is that the airplane would spiral out of control and crash. So that means that the direction that I turned the aileron sensitivity was wrong. So we turn that the other direction, all the way in the other direction. And now when I roll the gyroscope to the right aileron goes down to try and counteract it. And when I roll it to the left, the right aileron goes up to try and counteract it. So that is correct. It should be turned in that direction. So now we can just turn its sensitivity down a little bit because we don't need it that sensitive. It makes for a very unflyable and very jittery airplane. So now it's less sensitive. So when I roll it, it doesn't jump as much, but it is rolling in the right direction. All right. Now we can move on to our elevators. Same principle. So our elevators, when I tilt the gyroscope forward, nose down, the elevator should go up, which it did. And when I tilt it back, nose up, the elevator should go down to try and stop it from going nose up. So we go nose down, elevator goes up, nose up, elevator goes down to try and counteract it. So the elevators are already in the right direction. So we just turn down their sensitivity a little bit. And then the rudder, same principle. We turn it. When the nose of the plane turns to the left, the rudder should turn right to try and counteract it. And when the nose of the plane turns right, the rudder should try to turn left to counteract it. And they are moving in the right direction. So now we just turn down their sensitivity. And just like that, the gyroscope is set up. Now that the basic setup of our gyroscope has been completed and we know what position we want it to be in, let's cut a little bit of our two-sided tape. I choose to use this Gorilla tape, a Gorilla Glue mounting tape that's a little bit stronger than the tape that comes with it, because what you don't want to have happen is when you're out doing high-speed maneuvers with this thing and your gyroscope comes loose, because that will quickly turn your plane into an unflyable plane. We take this, put our tape on the back, get our receiver out of the way temporarily, and we're going to mount the gyroscope inside the fuselage. Try to go as far forward as I can so that I won't have issues getting a good center of gravity later on. And I'm going to stick it in the same orientation that I tested it in to the battery tray, like so. And then we get another piece of two-sided tape for our receiver. So if there were a contest to see who could apply two-sided tape the fastest, I would probably lose that contest all the time.
2 hours later.
There we go. And I'm going to just mount my receiver kind of on the side of the electronic compartment. And now ensuring that we have enough room for our battery. Connect in the afterburner lights. Connect in the battery. Close it up. And then do a check of the gyroscope functions in the airplane. So the plane rolls to the right. The aileron should try and counteract that by the left aileron going up and the right aileron going down. And the opposite should happen if I roll it to the left. And it does do that. The nose dips. The elevator should go up to try and compensate for that. The nose goes up. The elevator should go down to try to compensate for that. And if the nose yaws to the left, the rudders should go to the right to try and counteract, which is what they did. And if the nose yaws to the right, the rudders should shift to the left to try and counteract that. And last but not least, just because it's fun, afterburner.